Hey y'all, I'm DRBibliophile, and the book I'm going to be reviewing for you today is not here. Unfortunately, the library wanted their copy back. They get a little bit huffy if you don't return on time. This grumpy old woman calls you up on the phone and says, "Your book is overdue, or rather, it's nearly overdue. It's due back today, and you can't renew it again, so bring it back now." Slightly unnerving, but hey, it is what it is. So, I'm still going to do the review, and I'll try and put a picture in. Maybe in post, my editing skills aren't quite what they should be, so we'll see how that goes. Anyways, the book I'm going to be reviewing today is Exposure by Kathy and Brendan Reichs. This is Viral's book 4. Now, in order to understand what on earth is going on in Viral's book 4, you would really need to have read the preceding 3 books. On the off chance that you guys have not, I'm going to try and summarize what happens in the first 3. Warning, spoilers ahead. I'm sorry, there's just really no way I can sum up what goes on in the first 3 without giving a little bit of it away. So maybe stop the video now if you don't want it spoiled, but I promise to do my absolute best to spoil as very little as possible, and I do promise not to spoil Exposure. So who are the Virals? The Virals are a group of 4 teens named Tori, Ben, Sheldon, and Hai. These guys live on Morris Island right off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. They are all the children of researchers that work at Leary research facilities. And let me tell you, Morris Island is small. I mean really, really small. Like just the 4 kids, 1 community small. So these guys, being the only people in the entire community, they get to be really good friends and have to watch out for each other at the school they go to. As a really cool added bonus for the researchers to come work at Leary Institute, the institution promises that they will pay for scholarships and just full payment to go to Bolton Prep School on the mainland, which is Charleston's finest and most exclusive school. These 4 teens coming from there are completely fish out of water at Bolton Prep. They're called things all day like Islanders, scholarship kids, etc. Teens are not always nice people, especially rich teens. If any of you guys are watching, I'm sure you're nice, but the sad fact is a lot of them aren't, so they don't have the best of time at school. To make up for this, they often go on just really good day trips and adventures afterwards just to try and escape what is going on over there. One of their favorite places to go is Loggerhead Island, which is where the location of Leary Research Facilities actually is. On Loggerhead, there is a local family of wolves and half-wolves that they've come to kind of know, not really closely because of the fact they're still wolves, but they've seen the family grow up and they've have a close connection with them all. So they are all shocked and appalled when they find out one day that Leary is actually doing illegal and unknown research on some of these guys. Infuriated, the teens decide to do a undercover break-in to try and rescue the pup that they're experimenting on. Which I gotta say, I don't blame them. I mean, who wouldn't want to rescue a little puppy from something like that with wires sticking out of it? And that's just wrong. I'm sorry. That's just not cool. So anyways, to make a long story short, they break into Leary, rescue the pup, and get out of there. But what they didn't realize is that the experiments that were being conducted were into the parvovirus, and specifically a version called parvovirus XBB19. The huge downside to XBB19 is that it is extremely contagious to humans. The Virals didn't know this going in, but they realized it really soon going out, because a couple days after they break in, they all begin to feel really sick, and violently sick in fact, and just not themselves at all. They can tell something is not right. To make a long story short, what ended up happening is parvovirus XBB19 altered their DNA and has given them the powers of the wolves. Now, I do want to stress right here that this is not a werewolf book or a paranormal in any way, shape, or form. Even though they got the powers of the wolves, they do not become werewolves. They just simply retain the powers in a process called flaring, which is all it's called when they find a way to activate their powers. The powers these guys have is their senses of sight, smell, hearing, speed, and strength are all increased, but they don't turn into hairy beasts with fangs, and they don't transform back into guys with their shirts off and stuff like that. In fact, the only physical characteristic of them flaring and stuff, aside maybe from being really strong, is when they are flaring, their irises glow yellow, which is really cool sounding, but is extremely inconvenient for these guys, partially because people don't like to see glowing yellow irises in public. It kind of freaks them out and makes them panic just a little bit, so sunglasses are worn a lot in this book. Anyways, much of the first book is spent with them trying to figure out what to do with these new abilities, how to control them, and to find out if there's even some kind of a cure. In book 2, we find the Virals once again kind of dealing with much of the same thing, but now they've come to grips with the fact that there may not be a way to remove proof. It's still left up in the air whether it is permanent or it could be changed at some point. So much of this book is very similar to the first, where they're trying to figure out how to regain control of their powers. Be careful that nobody else finds out, but in the process of number 2, they're also trying to stop a crime that's going on and discover a buried treasure. Now, at the very end of book 3, the virals Tori, Ben, Sheldon, and Hai have just come off of a very, very stressful situation with a psychopath named the Game Master who has been trying to kill every single one of them. To make this even worse, they discover that the Game Master was helped, or maybe not helped, but involved, shall we say, with one of the other virals. So the pack that they've come to strengthen and get to know so well is kind of broken apart. And it's sad. But that's how it is. So there, now you're all caught up and we can talk about Exposure. Once again, I promise to not spoil it. Very much. A lot. I'll do my best not to spoil it. So Exposure starts out with 2 of Bolton Prep's finest students, a twin brother and sister, going missing. The only clue is an antique tarot card left on the pillow of one of the twins' beds. By this point in the series, the virals, while still very kind of distrustful of each other after the events of the last one, realize that since this is such a personal case, they really need to come together and do what they can to help the police find these 2 guys, because even though they're not necessarily the best of friends with them, they don't want their classmates messed with, because they realize even if they start taking them, there's a chance that other people at Bolton could be targeted, and if they're targeted, their powers could possibly come into play and be revealed. However, as they get deeper and deeper into the mystery, they realize that it's a lot darker and much more involved than they ever thought it was. Now, do they catch the kidnapper? Do they find the twins? Do they get back together? Do they get their powers under control? I'm not going to tell you. I promise not to spoil, and I want to leave this as open-ended as possible just so you guys will go read it. Because Exposure in the entire Viral series is a great book in series. It's a near-flawless example of what a good young adult should be, and much of that is because it's Kathy and Brendan Reichs writing it. Kathy Reichs is the author of the Bones series, which is in its 9th season now on television, and even in that show, the character writing, the development, the plot is so engaging and captivating that you are engrossed up until the very end of every episode and or every book. And that is exactly how Virals is. Now, to be fair, yes, there are some flaws. For example, it does have many of the same things that a lot of typical contemporary young adult does. For example, the character Hai is kind of a husky, shall we say, kind of nerdy character, which is, it has the typical teen setting. So he's the typical nerdy fat guy, but really funny. Sheldon is also kind of nerdy, but not as much, a little bit shy, the more timid guy. And Ben is the big, strong, but kind of brooding, not sure where exactly he fits. He's not the smart guy, he's more like the jock. And to complicate things, he knows he likes Tori, but doesn't know exactly how to say it, so he spends most of this book just brooding and figuring out how am I going to tell her, and should I tell her, things like that. And then Tori, although she is the youngest one of the Virals, she is the accepted leader, she's the strong female character, but throughout all of the series, she has at least 2 guys trying to win her over, and she has things to deal with, refusing the feminism things that are going on. So like I said, it just has a lot of elements that are very kind of stereotypical cookie-cutter YA. But it just has the elements of a typical YA. It is not by any means another run-of-the-mill cookie-cutter young adult. In fact, I like to think the series is very unique in the fact that they can combine the genres of YA, contemporary, paranormal, mystery, and thriller into something that is so engaging and captivating. One of the huge selling points of this series is the fact that you honestly feel like all of this could be going on right now in Charleston, South Carolina. And the biggest reason for that is because the authors put so many current pop culture references into it, which you would think would cheapen the feel of this book, but it doesn't. It just really helps to develop the characters more, and like I said, to help you feel like it's going on right now. In this one, Exposure, I really think there were a couple even Game of Thrones references, along with a lot of the references, albeit are a little bit more like Hai and Sheldon bantering nerd or internet references back and forth, but it's great. It just really does help engage you and build the characters. So once again, this is a great book and a great series, and honestly, if I had the money, I would buy every single one, which is something I don't typically do with a lot of young adult I read, but I love this series. It's that good. I will provide a link in the description for the book so you guys can check it out yourselves. That's it for my review. I hope you guys liked what you saw. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And always remember, reading is the special key to take you where you want to be. Thanks, and God bless. Bye.